Hello, I'm Danilo. I'm a leather worker in Dallas, Texas. I make handbags. These are some of my items. Today, we're gonna be working on the foo bag. We're gonna be showing you how to make the foo bag from beginning to end. You can find me on Querisimo.com. You can also find me on Facebook under the same name and Instagram. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is that we're gonna take a look at the leather we have. It's always important to inspect for blemishes on the leather or markings. Remember that leather, it's a natural material we use, so sometimes we're gonna run into markings like man-made markings, such as branding of the animal. Sometimes, they will run into thorns or shrubs or anything, and they will scar the skin. So sometimes it will be apparent here on the skin. Sometimes, as part of the processing, the leather will get damaged. So we have one blemish here. So you have to identify those. So you make sure that when you lay out your pattern, you lay it out on an area that is unaffected. Also, it's important to consider that it's all about efficiency. You want to be able to use as much as you can of this leather. So a good rule of thumb is to start working from the edge of the hide. So I think here, this section here, I see there is the branding there. Me personally is going to try to avoid that. So I will place this pattern here, and then I'm gonna weigh it down. That will enable me to, if I need to pull the hide this way, notice that the pattern travels along with the hide. And now this weight will help it stay in place. So we get our X-Acto knife and we start tracing. It's important to cut through and consistently. One pass will give you very good results. So it's important to always have a very sharp blade. So this is why it's important to have a very sharp blade. One pass and you get a clean cut. Now what I'm about to do here, I applied the double-sided tape to the pattern I'm trying to cut around so it doesn't move. Obviously, I cannot use my weight because I don't have the space for it, right? It's too big. But I need the pattern to stay put. Here, you have to be careful to choose the face of the leather where you attach it to so it doesn't damage the finish of the leather. In this case, if I do it on the turquoise side, it may actually damage the surface because this is very sticky. So we don't want to do that. I'm going to do it on the other side. That side doesn't matter if it changes or if it affects the look of it a little bit, because it's not going to be exposed. So it's not a real concern. Now, there, I'm able now to trace it with the knife. Earlier, we identify a section of the leather that had a big scar on it or a big marking that I don't want it to be part of my design. But I still want to use it. You want to reduce waste as much as possible. So we are working on these strap attachments right now, and I'm going to double the layer, or double this leather. I'm going to make it 2 layers. So in this instance, it's okay to use one of the sections of the leather that has the scarring on it, because that's going to go on the back side and you will not see it, and it will not affect the structure of the bag. The idea is that we pair these 2 pieces together like this. We're gonna glue them, and then we're gonna fold them over like that for the strap attachment. And notice that the scar section, it's gonna be in the back, and you won't ever be able to tell. So we are maximizing the use of our leather like that. And applying the edge flex is pretty much the same process throughout the entirety of the bag. It's pretty uneventful, and it's a process that takes time. You won't see the results you want at the first pass. The more you do it, the better it looks, right? That's just how it goes. So here we're gonna apply on this section. Now here, because this section here, let me illustrate here why we're doing what we're doing. Eventually these D-rings, or these rings, are gonna go here, but we need to edge the entire piece, right? So this is what we're trying to accomplish right here. Okay? So we're gonna apply the edge flex here at the waist of this strap holder. We're going to apply edge flex here later, at a much later time, once we're able to close these and glue it together. But for now, this is okay. We're just gonna let it dry like this. Okay, so what we're doing now is that we're gonna trim the straps to size, and we're gonna cut the buckle end. This is where the buckle is going to fit, of the strap. So we need to trim this to size. Now this is a 1-inch wide strap, so we locate the 1-inch end here. So here we just need to measure the way the length of the strap. There's nothing standard about it. So this one, I'm gonna make the length for this section of the strap is gonna be at 42 inches. Actually, no, we're gonna leave it at 46 inches. 46 inches, so we cut it at 46 inches. This one, typically, I cut it at 13 inches. So now we're just trying to center where we're gonna punch a hole for the rivet. We can do 2 rivets. One, it's sufficient to hold everything in place, but we can make it to look a bit nicer. We can add 2 rivets. Just add some visual interest to it. There is no set rule or guide to tell you how separated they need to be. It's just whatever you think is gonna look nice. Now, in certain instances, for structural purposes, you do need to respect the spacing of it. In this case, it doesn't make much difference, so I can space them any which way I see fit. Now here, this section is going to attach to the ring side of the other end of the belt. So all I have to do is lay one on top of the other to be able to replicate the positioning of it, okay? You can push down your hole puncher like that and it will make an impression in it. Do it like that on this side too. Oops, sorry, it moved slightly. And then you can proceed to punch. There. And now on this end, we actually need to make here, we try to separate this 1 inch apart on center. So we just need to make sure you space them out. One inch apart, that's the trick. Usually I will make the straps to have 5 holes, so that means that you can add or reduce the length of your strap up to 5 inches. If you want more, then you just add more holes. Typically I separate these 1 inch apart, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 holes. So what we're gonna do now is that we're gonna rough the side of the handle attachment that we're gonna glue together. So I'm gonna rough it up so that it sticks better to glue. I like to put the ring in first before I apply the glue because it's quite messy if you do it the other way around. Now it makes more sense as to why we did the waist of the attachment, of the strap attachment first, so the rings don't get on your way. So now we can finish the rest here, but we're gonna try to cover that gap too with a thin Look at that. Okay, so we have finished applying the edge coat all around the perimeter of every piece, every component. Notice that I also attach or secure in place the strap attachment. We use saddle stitching, and we also use a 2-prong chisel. You have to pre-puncture the holes throughout. A 2-prong stitcher will allow you to go around turns like this. And even when you get to the apex or the tip of this piece here, it allows you to turn nicely and keep your stitching on a straight line or evenly distributed. And I've done both ends, so now the piece looks like that. We've also applied the edge finish or the edge coat on the rosettes. We've equally done that on the straps. Now we're gonna proceed to attach the backing to the bag. That's gonna give rigidity to the panels, the front panel and the back panel to the back, and it's gonna give it a nice shape. Otherwise, we will have a very slushy and soft bag. So we're gonna proceed to attach the backing, and for that we're gonna use this type of leather, and it's gonna look like that on the flip side of it. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna trim the pattern I use. This is gonna be the backing for the main or the back and flap panel of the bag. We're gonna use virtually the same pattern. I'm gonna trim it in size about 1/4 of an inch all around. That 1/4 of an inch represents the stitching area. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is that I'm gonna attach the gusset to the back panel of the bag. I put right at the center line here a reference point so I can match it to this center point that I marked on the gusset. So now this is the tricky part. You have to take your time. You have to make sure you match these two. There. And we start gluing them or making contact from the edge out. Now this is where it gets tricky when you turn like this. So it's important to have an adequate amount of contact cement so it keeps it in place. Look at that. Look at that. That's gonna mark it. And then the lace is gonna come from the bottom here. Okay, so what we're gonna continue here is demonstrating how to stitch the final product. I recommend is gluing the two components, and then with your chisel, once it's glued together, with the chisel, with the 2-prong chisel, you line it up and you puncture the whole thing. So like that, your holes will match perfectly. My particular technique here, or my preferred technique, I just use the one needle. Loop these around and come back on the same hole. So it creates, and look at that, how clean it is. It is important to pull, make sure that you pull the loop all the way so it ends all more or less in the middle or in between the two pieces to lock the stitch in place. Okay, so the next step is gonna be to set the hardware in place. We're gonna insert the buckle here. And now we need to secure it in place by adding the rivets. The final step here was to set the straps in place. We just use brass rivets. You can set this in a number of different ways. You can use a rivet setter or a rivet press. In this case, we went totally manual and we use the anvil with the rivet tool. One tap, easy does it. And look at that, we set both sides the same. And that actually looks kind of nice, doesn't it? Together. Some people will call this bag a hobo bag. I call it the foo bag. Let's take a look at the nice details, the closure. You close it like this. Let's look at the nice clean inside. We use veg tan leather on the inside and we use studio leather on the outside. I think they combine very well together. It's got a nice lengthy strap, kind of long, and it's adjustable. I try to leave my straps always with 5 holes. The holes are 1 inch apart, so you have 5 inches to shorten the length of the strap or to increase the length of the strap up to 5 inches, depending which way you go. It's got a nice clean look. The lines are very fluid. Look at that. And this is a bag that you can stitch. This is a design that you can stitch all by hand.